Hello and welcome to the Cyber Podcast, where we're shaping ideas and informing change. My name is Maria and I'm your host. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing youth participation. I am joined by Sydney Mupeta, who's a youth engagement expert, and Danji Simwanza, who did some research in this topic. Welcome, Sydney, and welcome, Danji.
Thank you very much, Maria, and thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure to have you. I understand that your research spans what happened in the 2021 election, what is currently prevailing on the ground now, and what might happen in the 2026, some projections related to that. So I think it would be good for us to just start from the very beginning of the 2021 election. What were your findings in relation to that?
No, thank you for that question. It's very important that before we even look at that, we define who a youth is. It's important for the audience to understand who the youth is. Uh, the definition of youth has been, variously defined. If you look at the African Youth Charter, for instance, they define youth as an individual who is aged between 15 and 35. But when we bring it home here in Zambia, I look at how it was defined in the previous constitution, the 2016 Constitution Amendment Act. The youth is defined as an individual who has attained the age of 19 and is below the age of 35. But then, Maria, you are very much aware that the constitution has been amended, and we now have the Constitution Amendment Bill number 7. Which has been enacted as law now, and it is the constitution that we are relying on as a country. And it was proposed during the debate that the youth should be redefined, and they defined the youth as someone who is aged between 18 and 34. So anyone who is 18 years and above, but not above 34 years. Yeah. Now coming to your question in terms of what the study focused on, we first of all we examined youth participation in 2021 before we could even look at what is prevailing now in terms of youth participation. And it was established that the youth were very influential during the 2021 general elections. They actually influenced the outcome of presidential elections, and they turned up in numbers to cast their votes, to exercise their political right. And it was reported that in terms of the number of voters who cast their vote, the youth constituted about 50% of the vote. And that entails, can tell you more about how influential the youth are. So there were a number of factors that were established in the study in terms of what really influenced the youth to participate in such a manner. Studies that we interacted with, and also the stakeholders we interviewed, they indicated that during the previous regime, prior to 2021 elections, there was a decline in terms of democracy in the country. We were not performing well in terms of adhering to the tenets of democracy. There was political violence which characterize the political landscape in this country. And also, there was economic challenges, the high cost of living and high unemployment levels. And all these factors pushed the youth to turn up in numbers and vote the way they voted in 2021 elections. And that's what the study established. Um, and because of all these factors, and we see that there was also an erosion of the rule of law. And all those factors really had to push the youth uh, to make them more united and also make them to vote to turn up in numbers and vote the way they voted. And of course, the way they voted, they wanted to actually vote the regime, then the PF, out based on the factors that I've highlighted. Yeah, based on the 2021 findings, I think that those are the key issues that came out.
Okay, that's very interesting. And I think thank you for highlighting those parts. Before we get into what's prevailing at the moment, it would be proper for us to also discuss why it's relevant to discuss or research on youth participation.
Okay.
Why why are we looking at the youth? Why not another demographic? Why is it relevant in the Zambian context to discuss this or to
Uh,
research on it?
Thank you very much. I will speak and allow my colleague to also speak. Uh, yeah, it is very important to look at youth participation because, as you know, Maria, the youth are considered to be the future leaders of the nation, and Zambia having the youthful population, it means even in terms of uh, the, the the driving of the economy, the country depends on the youth. They are more energetic, they are more innovative, and these are future leaders. And it's important that we begin to develop them and empower them with leadership skills by having an inclusive governance where youths are involved, are heavily involved, so that they learn the leadership skills because they are future leaders. They will take up this leadership, the leadership mantle of the nation. And it is important that all interested stakeholders uh, at national, community, at any level, they should be interested in in knowing how the youths are participating in governance, because this is the platform that we have for the youth to engage in politics, to engage in governance issues, and also help in terms of them getting grounded in leadership skills, like I've indicated. Maybe I will allow my colleague to speak to this question as well.
So the study focused on youth because the youth make up a large percentage of the population. And it's not just Zambia. Countries like South Africa also, 60%, approximately 60% of the population is made up of youth. The same applies to Ghana and Uganda also. So the study was initiated because the representation of the youth in governance positions is not as much. Quite right, the constitutional amendment has brought about mixed proportional representation, which is one improvement. But there's more improvement that can be done to create an enabling environment, enabling legislation to create an enabling environment.
Thank you very much, Ndagi, for that. I think you have spoken to something about governance positions. And when I think of youth participation in politics or the political arena, I'm thinking of elections and unfortunately cadres. What are we talking about when we talk about participation
Okay.
of youth?
Thank you very much. Yeah. When it comes to political participation, participation takes place at different levels. Um, and when we say political participation of the youth, we are not referring only to voting in an election. Uh, it's very interesting, to highlight that the study established that youth. Uh, there's an observation among the stakeholders that the youth are more focused on elections. They look forward to having elections and vote the person they want in or out, which should not be the case in a democratic dispensation as ours. One of the things that need to be done is that after elections, we have the government in place. It's important that the youth they forget about elections and begin to think of holding the government officials accountable for them to be able to deliver on the promises which they made during their campaigns. So that's one way in which youth should participate. They should focus much on holding the government officials accountable. Apart from that, they should also engage in community activities. There are so many things that or activities which government might have been undertaking in their communities. For instance, there are CDF projects that are being undertaken. The youth should not sit back and look at the people that are involved in implementing these projects and let them be. eh, eh, They should get involved and make sure that things are done correctly and things are done to the benefit of the community. That engagement is lacking currently. I don't know whether there are no legislations that are allowing, uh, the youth to be able to engage with their government officials. Apart from that, the youths are supposed to be actively engaged in debating policy issues, actively engaging in debating constitutional issues, and commenting on political matters because it's through politics the policies are formulated, and these policies affect the youth and the majority Zambians. So it's important that we pay attention to what the government is putting in place, the decisions they are making, and the actions they are undertaking, and ensure that these actions are benefiting the general populace or the general citizens.
Okay. In 2021, from your findings as well, it was established that the youth were more or less kingmakers, really. And that was a very central part of the election, the dynamics in that election. Um, was that a one time thing, or is this something that we can expect to happen even in the future?
Okay. Thank you very much for that important question, Maria. Of course, like not only the 2021 general elections, we know that the participation of the youth spans from as way back as the colonial time. The youth were participating in politics. And after independence, we see the increase in the number of youths participating in politics, and that could be attributed to the increase also in population at that time. And now we have seen in the elections which we have held in this country that the youth have been instrumental in deciding the outcome of the especially the presidential elections. And also, we have seen that the youth actually they have been described as kingmakers, and that is true because they have been so influential. Now, the question you are asking whether this is a one-time thing or it can be seen even in the coming elections. Uh, First of all, in 2021, what really pushed the youths uh, to vote in such a manner? Uh, are the factors that I highlighted, some of them, and the hardships that which they were going through, unemployment levels, high, cost of living, and all these factors were the push factors for them to turn up, to register in numbers, and turn up during election and vote the way they voted. But then we should bear in mind that these factors are still prevalent. The study established that these factors are still prevalent. People are complaining about the high cost of living. Majority of the youth are not employed. Uh, there is a perceived democratic decline, uh, as it can be seen in the narrowing of the civic space, the introduction of the cyber law and cyber security law have further narrowed the space for the youth. You may agree with me, Maria, that in 2021 the youth utilized the social media platform very, very well, and the political leaders were also engaging these youth through the media. But now that is not the case, especially that there is a law that will regulate to what extent you have to engage with people on social media. So all these factors are prevailing. The question is, are we going to see the same scenario which we saw in 2021? That is something that we need to reflect on. And based on the findings we established, is that we are seeing a situation where the youth uh, the youth there is polarization among the youth. They are divided in terms of opinion. If we compare uh, the youth, the way the youth united during the 2021 election, and we compare the situation now, we see that right now they are not united as much as they were united in 2021 prior to the general elections. Right now, there are some divisions. Others are supporting the government, and others uh, are not supporting the government. And this has been shown in several studies that have been done. If you look at the Afrobarometer edition, 2024 edition, uh, it was revealed that the youth, I mean, the youth, they feel that the government has not performed to their expectation. And the promises that were made by the ruling part have not been fulfilled, and that has frustrated the youth, and that's what we established this as frustrated the youth, and that can affect or can impact the way they are going to vote come 2026 elections. But because of that division, we see two groups of youth. Others are frustrated, others are happy with the way the government is working. And we see a situation where if we do not have a formidable opposition political party, these are the findings we established in this study, that with the disintegrated opposition political parties, those that are frustrated, the youths that are frustrated, they may not have an option uh, of a person they can vote for to actually remove the government which they think is not performing. And because of that, we may see a situation where we can have voter apathy among the youth. And when we have such a situation, we see now those that are supporting the incumbent government to go and cast the vote. And you and I we can conclude to say it will give an upper hand to the incumbent government if at all we experience voter apathy. Going forward, looking at what is prevailing now, we need to the stakeholders, the civil society, they need to think of how best they can create these platforms for youth participation. So it's not a once-off arrangement. It's something that we should expect even in the coming elections, not only the 2026 elections, even the coming because we have a youthful population in Zambia.
You mentioned the narrowing of the civic space specifically.
Mm.
Is this shrink something that predated the 2021 elections, or it's something that has commenced after the 2021 elections? And what would you attribute it to, the shrinking of that of the civic space?
Okay. Yeah. So it's not something that has just started now. Uh, um, if you remember very well, in 2021, prior to general election, um, there were there was political violence, and people were full of fear in terms of participating in governance issues or participating in politics. But then there was this expectation from the current government. The youth expected something to change. They expected a complete change in terms of what used to happen in 2021 and what should be happening from 2021 to 2026. Um, there was that expectation. So that expectation has not been fulfilled in terms of widening the political space for everyone to participate. Uh, it has been reported in so many literature and also in this study. We established that the stakeholders are actually they are complaining about the narrowing of the civic space. The freedom of assembly and association has been, hampered on. Whenever they ask, they write to the police to ask for permission for them to have a meeting and speak to their citizens and express uh, their plans in terms of how they would want to govern this country if voted in. That has rarely been given or granted to the political parties, and there has been that outcry in terms of freedom of assembly and association. That has not been happening. And then, if you have observed, there hasn't much of the youth activities in terms of the things they are not happy about that they may want to probably protest. It is becoming very difficult. And then the other uh, factor that has contributed to the narrowing of the civic space is the enactment of the cybercrime and cybersecurity laws. These have also contributed to the narrowing of the civic space because now citizens are being watched, are being checked in terms of what they should say, what they should post on social media, and to what extent they should engage themselves in conversations to do with politics. That has instilled fear in the youth. And you may have observed that there has been a narrative on social media that people now begin to say when they see a political issue and you have something to say about it, they are saying that they don't have a lawyer.
Yeah.
That narrative entails that there is fear among the citizens that they have literally their mouths are closed. They can't speak because there is this cyber law that is there to want them.
The question that follows then would be, can democracy thrive if every youth is now saying they don't have a lawyer? They cannot speak on matters related to policy, to their own employment, or the development of the country. because they don't have a lawyer. Would democracy be sustained in Zambia?
No, that in practical sense is not. It can't. It can't be sustained because one of the tenets of democracy is citizen participation. Citizen participation is one of the tenets of democracy, and if that is hampered, then it means democracy is not. There is no, enabling environment for democracy to flourish, and that becomes problematic. You cannot have a nation where citizens are not participating, and that may not qualify to be called a democratic society or a democratic nation.
Earlier, you alluded to voter apathy being anticipated in, I guess, the disgruntled youth in the 2026 elections. Um, w- would the political climate, the economic hardship that people are facing, lead to voter apathy, or will it lead to, I guess, something that happened in 2021? I guess my question would be more, rather than practical, more conceptual. What happened in 2021 that might or might not happen in 2026 when it comes to, the types of environment that they youth have found themselves in?
Yeah, so very important question. There are two things involved here. We have two scenarios. We may have the youth turning up in numbers and vote. We may also have a section of disappointed or frustrated youth because of the unfulfilled promises, maybe shunned from participating uh, uh, in voting. So it's really something difficult to say outright that there will be voter apathy. And again, we cannot deny the fact that voter apathy uh, can be there. Eh, Potentially, voter apathy can be there among the youths that are not happy with the way the current government is performing. And that will give an advantage to the incumbent because those that feel happy and uh, are okay with what the government is doing, they will definitely go and cast their votes, and that will give an advantage to the incumbent. But then, what do we need to do? It's just for the government, I think, to consider addressing the challenges which the youth are facing. Of course, we know that the time is not enough for them to address these issues. But then we will see a situation where, like I indicated, that these challenges were the push factors in 2021 elections. So those we may have youths that may also decide to say, let's vote no, this government which is not performing out, and they turn up in numbers. But we must bear in mind the fact that uh, the youth are not as united as they were in 2021. So that uh, becomes difficult for us to just say outright that there will be voter apathy.
Thank you very much, Sydney. You had spoken about polarization and in relation to the polarization amongst the youth and as well as the lack of informed debate amongst the youth. Are there any recommendations based off of the research that you've conducted to address these challenges?
Way in which we can address the two issues is to deliberately create a platform for the youth to heavily get involved in governance. Because when you are involved, you are informed. You will know exactly what is happening. You will know exactly. You understand the processes that go into perhaps making a decision, a policy decision, or in formulating the constitution, for instance. That that involvement will give you more information to be able to engage yourself in debate that is based on evidence, that is based on 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 what is prevailing on the ground. Uh, so there's more. There's need. There's a need to create these platforms. That's number one. Then there's also need to capacitate the youth, especially the organizations that are dealing with the youth. They should capacitate the youth to empower them with the skills and the knowledge for them to be able to understand the policies, debate policies, evaluate policies, analyze policies, and i- position them in such a way that they know their role in society or their role in the nation. We may have a group of youths that do not know exactly where to start from in terms of engaging their political officials or their MPs, the government. And also, the other thing is government. You may be aware, Maria, that the access to information bill was passed. I don't know why it has not been uh, implemented so far. I have not heard of anyone who has gone to the government institution and access information he or she wants. But I stand to be corrected on that one. But that allowing the citizens to have access to certain information will also help them to make informed decisions and informed debate.
Based off of what you had mentioned in relation to increasing youth participation or making deliberate steps or deliberate measures to ensure that youth participation is increased, um, what can be done, what should be done, what has been done right now?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Like I've indicated, the youth are important, and they decide who becomes the president in this country. That is a fact. Um, so, in terms of increasing the number of youths participating in governance issues, uh, uh, already the government, through the constitution amendment bill, which they proposed in parliament and which has now been assented to by the president and it has become law, uh, we have seen a deliberate measure that has been put in place by adopting the mixed member proportional representation, where the youths have been given 15 seats. That measure in itself has demonstrated uh, uh, the country's, appreciation of the participation of youth in governance, or rather in politics. But then that is not enough. There is need to have that trickle. It has to trickle down to political party level. At national level, we are making all these strides, but what are we doing at party level? There has been a challenge in this country when it comes to adoption of candidates, especially youth candidates, who are considered by the older men and women as children that are not mature enough to take up a leadership role in the nation, and also because they have no financial muscle, they cannot uh, be adopted as members of parliament. And there are all these structural hindrances that prevent, um, youth from being actively involved in politics at party level. So we need to see a situation where uh, this what is being done at national level in terms of the change of the constitution also trickles down at party level. Remember, we have a mixed member proportional representation, so we still have members of parliament who be voted using the first past the post. So through that, if the parties can deliberately, or compelled in our constitution, by the constitution, if we can do further amendments in future and compel the political parties to be adopting the same 15, if we are to propose the same 15 that have been put at national level, and also at political level, they are compelled to adopt 15 youths in each political party. That will also enhance and help in terms of increasing the number of youths participating in politics. So there is more that needs to be done. And also there is also need for capacity building, like I indicated there, that the youth should be capacitated to the extent that they have the confidence to participate in politics, and also there is need to create an enabling environment for them not to have uh, fear to participate in politics, but they should feel comfortable. Like we have seen, a number of them are expressing interest in participating in the coming elections in 2026. You've seen the youth posting, expressing their interest. But again, we are yet to see at party level those that will belong to a political party, whether they will be adopted or not. So that is another issue. And that's why I am emphasizing that what is being done at national level, the measures that are being put in place at national level should also be done at party level.
Okay, thank you very much, Sydney. Then you also mentioned the Constitution Act number 13 of um, 2025 as being a step in the direction. So I'll throw this question to you, Ndanji. Um, it's a step in the right direction, but what else needs to be done to ensure youth participation? You alluded to countries like South Africa, Ghana, Uganda having a big youth population similar to Zambia. Are there any lessons to learn from them?
Okay, so for the countries that we can learn from, Uganda, for example, has the National Youth Council Act of 1993, which established youth councils at local and national levels and integrated them into the governance structures. Another country, South Africa, it has the National Youth Development Agency Act of 2008. So it merged youth commissions into a single statutory agency with a mandate to implement youth empowerment programs. Then Ghana also, the electoral law requires that political parties have youth wings. Yeah, so the National Youth Policy Implementation Plan for Zambia creates an enabling environment, but much of it remains policy. Yeah, so it's very important that it's turned into law to make it binding. So why this matters is that enabling legislation moves participation from policy to legal guarantees. So it ensures dedicated funding, it ensures institutionalized representation, as well as accountability mechanisms. So with regard to what we can adopt as a country, we can start with turning the policy into law, the legal guarantees. And then another thing we can implement, we can mirror Ghana and have political wings, where political parties are mandated to have political wings for the youth, so that there's more representation of the youth. So we can also mirror countries like Uganda and mirror the National Youth Council Act that established youth councils at local and national levels and integrate the youth into governance structures.
All right. Thank you very much for a very engaging and I guess timely conversation about elections and youth participation as we are heading to the polls, as we prepare for August. As we close, do you have any remarks, any closing remarks that you would want to leave our listeners with?
Thank you very much, Maria, for that, and we are happy to have been hosted by you, and this conversation has been so fruitful. Uh, in concluding this conversation, I would like to just speak to the fact that the youths are very important in this country, and being a youthful population the country has, it's important that we invest much on the youth and also ensure that we create an enabling environment for them to participate in politics, in governance processes, and also as we uh, gravitate towards 2026 elections, the stakeholders, the civil society organizations, government, and many other interested stakeholders should uh, pay much particular attention to the youth and ensure that the civic education promoted to ensure that they are more aware of what role they are supposed to play, not only in voting, but also after elections, they have a responsibility to hold the government officials accountable for them to be able to deliver development which will benefit the youth. I think with those few remarks, I just want to appreciate CIPA for the opportunity to conduct the research and also for creating this platform for us to share the findings and also emphasize on key issues to do with youth participation in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Ndanji. Any closing remarks?
Just say thank you for having us to talk about this report. And then takeaways that I feel like people should have from this report is that it's important for the youth to continue holding the government accountable despite the closing civic space. It's important for them to have these non-cognitive skills that allow them to hold the government accountable. Resilience, grit, as some of them. Another thing is they should be able to participate in the democratic space by working with the various organizations that are listed in the report. Um, social protection, transparency, corruption. Looking at those issues, they can participate in the governance of the country. It's also important for local CSOs to reach out to the youth and provide an enabling environment for them to participate and easily approach them so they can work together to address some of the issues that we have affecting the youth.
Thank you very much, Sydney, and thank you very much, Ndanji, for joining us and having this conversation. As you have heard, this is now a call to action to all of the youth to actively participate in politics, in discussions about policy, and engage in meaningful debate, and to the CSOs also to reach out to the youth in the communities to ensure that they are participating and have the resources necessary to participate. To our listeners, I would like to thank you for joining us and see you in the next one.